Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, and Jedi Academy are two games worth talking about in tandem. Jedi Outcast was released by Raven Software in 2002, who were responsible for several games that you might have heard of: Heretic, Hexen, Soldier of Fortune, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and they assisted with many of the 2010 Call of Duty games. So if you hadn't already heard of Raven, then surely that must instill some confidence. Those are some chops. Jedi Academy released just 1 year later, in 2003, and is still played to this day. In fact, the multiplayer is surprisingly popular, and you can find a multitude of communities who will welcome you in right now. Movie Battles is a mod that I'll quickly mention here too, because I'll get slammed if I don't, but I'll be talking mostly vanilla and single player stuff for this video. Both of these games are a hearty mix of first and third person shooter with action-adventure gameplay and the occasional bit of exploration and platforming. In Jedi Outcast, you take control of an ex-Jedi and badass mercenary, Kyle Katarn, as you take on missions for the New Republic alongside your partner and pilot, Jan Ors. The game takes place after the events of Return of the Jedi and after the Dark Forces games, where Kyle was involved in stealing the plans for the Death Star. Yeah, does that sound familiar, Rogue One? And at some point he discovered a mystical place called the Valley of the Jedi, which held the power to imbue people with Force powers, which he then used to chase revenge for story reasons, until eventually relinquishing those powers. On a routine mission for the Republic, Kyle and Jan get caught up in a discovery that the Imperial Remnant are also attempting to imbue people with the Force by doing some strange experiments with kyber crystals and prisoners. They set out to stop the mining operation and free said prisoners, and in doing so get caught up in a whole mess that ultimately sets Kyle back on the path of a Jedi, reacquainting him with Force powers, picking his lightsaber back up, and trying to do the right thing. Outcast starts as a first/third person shooter. You are just a mercenary after all, so you spend a good 2 to 4 hours just shooting various guns at stormtroopers and Imperial officer types. It definitely is a bit of a slog to get to the Jedi action we're all looking for, but the shooting isn't bad at all, and I found it well worth going through the challenge to get to that well-earned feeling when I finally got to swing a lightsaber around. A lot of you are going to be put off by that amount of time investment, but trust me, it is worth it. The weapons, for the most part, are projectile-based and not at all very accurate, so you have to lead all of your shots, and it can be a rough start, but the variety is fun to play with. Every weapon has 2 firing modes as well, so there's plenty going for it. You have a single or charged shot pistol in the Briar pistol, the Stormtrooper rifle that single or rapid fires, a Wookiee bowcaster that fires accurate shots or a charged up fan attack, a Disruptor sniper rifle, a heavy repeater machine gun that doubles as a concussion gun, an electromagnetic pulse gun that can tear through droids, the flechette weapon, which is basically a shotgun, and a Merson, which is a rocket launcher, along with thermal detonated grenades, det packs where you can manually explode, and laser trip mines, so you're spoiled for choice weapon-wise. Enemies are going to put up a reasonable fight and challenge you for a while, but that lightsaber and the Force are game changers, literally. It's amazing how suddenly powerful you become when you can one-shot enemies, deflect blasters, and push people around at will. The game becomes an absolute playground. As you progress, your Force powers will slowly upgrade. You can push, pull, jump up to 12 times your height, speed up to 4 times faster, throw your saber to seek enemies out, heal, mind trick enemies to fight for you or to ignore you, choke them with Force grip, and later toss them around and of course use Force lightning for unlimited power. All of these powers essentially make all of the stormtroopers into more cannon fodder than they were before, which makes everything hilarious to tear through like the god that you've become. It's endless amounts of fun to throw troopers off cliffs and hear their screams fade away, pull their guns from them and watch them try to surrender, casually grip them, or run circles around them and slice up an entire room before the first guy even hits the ground. But then of course you have the Lightsaber Combat, arguably the best saber combat we've ever seen in a game to date. All of this stuff carried over to Jedi Academy too, and was further improved upon. The way the lightsaber combat works looks simple, and it looks quite spammy, but it's deceptively so. In fact, you can control your direction of attack quite finely. You can swing horizontally left and right, vertically up and down, and diagonally in all 4 directions. Along with that, there's aerial attacks, rolling dodges, special leaping attacks and uppercuts, and chain combinations that you can put together with varying timings. Times all of that roughly by about 3 because you can use 3 separate fighting styles at any point once you unlock them, and suddenly you can see just how deep that rabbit hole goes. In other words, you have to aim those swings properly or you're not going to land any hits, and couple that with other lightsaber users that can also aim their attacks and block yours, it makes the combat incredibly fun. The blue style is extremely fast and can chain infinitely, but offers low defense and damage. Red is a cumbersome style offering slow but heavy hitting attacks that can leave you wide open if you're not careful, but can break through enemy blocks. And yellow, which you start with, is somewhere in between the two. I'll have more on lightsaber combat in a bit, but there are a couple of issues that I have with Outcast first. Firstly, while it is satisfying to finally get hold of a saber, it is a rough start with few weapons to start with. The level design is also maze-like in many ways, and I found myself getting lost a lot at points. I managed to sequence break the game once and miss a key I needed, and spent almost 20 minutes looking for a pipe that I needed to drop into. There were a number of times like that, and the level directly after you get a lightsaber practically punishes you for using it. Nar Shaddaa is populated by dozens of Rodian snipers with pinpoint accuracy. A rough one, to be sure. I was also left wanting more saber duels by the end of the game too, which just meant that they were that excellent. Saying all of that though, I highly recommend the game for any Star Wars fan. Seeing Billy D. Williams show up as Lando was a highlight, and so was fighting side by side with admittedly discount Luke Skywalker, sadly not voiced by Mark Hamill, and generally just being a part of the expanded universe was a ton of fun. Jedi Academy, just 1 year later, refined a bunch of these mechanics. You take control of Jaden Korr, a character of your own choosing. Yeah, you actually get some customization this time. You could be a Twi'lek, or a human, a Zabrak, or a Rodian. I recommend the females for Jennifer Hale's voice acting. You can also customize your lightsaber just a little bit, and with the Jedi Academy Enhanced mod, which I'm using here, you can also go full RGB with not only the saber, but also the Twi'lek skin colours, which I highly approve of. So yes, that does mean that you immediately start the game with a lightsaber. Jaden has somehow managed to build her own saber and join the Jedi Academy on Yavin. This is never explained, but it doesn't really need to be. She's somewhat of a prodigy, and Rosh, our friendly rival in the opening cutscene, definitely notices it. You spend the main story of the game doing somewhat mostly unrelated missions on your path from becoming a Padawan to an apprentice, and later to a full-fledged Jedi Knight. The story is rather a weak point for Academy, especially put next to Outcast, but neither is all that good or all that bad, so it's not really a big deal. What it does mean is that you get to travel to all kinds of planets and locations from the films for some extremely satisfying fan service. The story does come together as you progress, and those unrelated missions do culminate, but I didn't see any need for it, honestly. These missions are also much more linear than they were in Outcast. You could see that as a downside, but personally it cut a ton of downtime and confusion out for me, as it was much more obvious where I had to go, and I could continue playing the combat portions of the game. This also means that they were generally quite significantly shorter, but I never felt like the game was too short or outstayed its welcome, clocking in at around 15 hours or so for me. Another upside of short missions, and being able to pick what order you tackle them in, is that you can advance and upgrade your force powers more quickly. Before every side mission, you can allocate a rank of any light or dark side force power that you wish, up to a maximum of 3 ranks. The core powers from Outcast make a return, and upgrade after main story missions, so you'll still have push, pull, speed, jump, and saber throw, along with light and dark side powers that you get to choose to upgrade. On the light, Protect reduces damage you take by a percentage whilst active and prevents force regeneration. Absorb will ignore enemy force powers and refill your own force points. Heal can heal you over time, allow movement and then faster healing with more investment. Mind Trick can make enemies into temporary allies, just like in Outcast, and Stasis, which is added by Jedi Academy Enhanced, can trap enemies and droids in place for a time. On the dark side, Drain can absorb enemy health to heal you, but it's quite hard to use well and drains all of your force. Grip can pick up enemies and allow you to toss them around like ragdolls, which is hilarious. Lightning grants you unlimited... oh, I already made that joke. But it really is powerful for decimating entire rooms. Rage, which grants you increased movement speed, damage and attack speed at the cost of health. You'll see this power quite a lot. Destruction, which fires an explosive projectile, which is handy for a ranged pocket attack but not too great, also added by the mod. And Force Insanity, which is a bit like Mind Trick and Stasis, but at rank 3 instantly kills the target at the cost of your entire force pool, also added by the mod. You won't have enough missions to get all of these points, so I recommend Absorb, Protect, Grip, Lightning, Heal, and some kind of crowd control, though it means repeat playthroughs can be quite a different experience depending on your choices. And so we come back round to Saber Combat, and I should explain how duels work, since Jedi Academy pushes these often and pushes them hard. And with good reason. They're extremely satisfying and fun to do. No duel is ever going to be the same as the last because the AI is smart enough to react to you, but also prone to making mistakes that you can then exploit if you're fast enough. For a start, jumping leaves you or the enemy open to a force pull or a force push, making cliffs and platforming especially dangerous for both parties, but upping that potential for ending a fight before it even starts in a pretty funny way. Lightsaber Defense works by aiming the tip of your saber towards an incoming swing. They're fast and they're numerous, so it's definitely something that you need to practice to get good at. So the game also assists you by passively blocking most attacks in a small cone in front of you. Enemies too will attempt to block all of your attacks and get around your defences, keeping you on your toes. You can also deflect blaster shots in this way as well, but it makes dueling a fast-paced and exciting part of the game. A huge part, in fact, as later levels spam you with Dark Jedi around every corner. And frankly, bring them on, because they're incredibly fun to fight. Lightsaber Styles make a return too, so your single blade works the same way as it did in Outcast, with some improvements. You'll get access to the advantages and disadvantages of red and blue styles, meaning that red is great for dueling because it can break those passive blocks more easily, and blue is great for taking out fodder enemies or for poking an enemy when you see that they're open for counterattacks. Some of the improvements include special attacks, things like flipping aerial attacks, rolling counter stabs, blue, yellow and red katas that act as their own cool combo moves, cartwheels, ground attacks, lunges, rear attacks, and then we have butterfly attacks, twirls, kicks, double directional attacks, and acrobatics. You can wall climb, wall run, backflip, save yourselves from a bad jump, evade, roll out of a knockdown, and you can long jump too. All of this depends on your saber styles of choice, which now includes the option of staff sabers like Darth Maul had in Episode 1, and dual sabers like Anakin used a few times. All of this stuff is extremely awesome. Just looking at it play out looks cool, but being in control of exactly how and when you execute all of these moves is altogether a different, all that much more amazing feeling. Getting that reactionary force push off on a guy leaping at you is so cool, or force pushing to escape a saber lock and nailing that kick-ass killing blow. Getting a ground attack in on a guy that you knocked over is great. Avoiding someone trying to do that exact same move to you is equally great. Pulling off a cartwheel attack and finishing off a guy as you roll over his head is something else, and all of the slow-mo camera shots feel rewarding. And hey, why not throw a force push at the end of him for that extra swag, like Count Dooku too. These moves are all things that the enemy will also use against you too, which puts you on a more level playing field. Not too level, of course, as they regularly throw multiple opponents at you, but that's why it feels so damn empowering to be in those fights and to then come out on top. It warrants multiple playthroughs to mess with different force powers and saber styles, each of which with their own disadvantages to work around. Dual sabers, for example, do more damage than the blue single style does, and at the same blistering speed, but aren't the easiest to use on enemy saber wielders, since they can't get through blocks quite as easily as red would. Staffs can absolutely obliterate them though, but can feel a bit unwieldy against regular troopers. Single saber might sound boring in comparison to all of this stuff, but having access to all 3 styles at all times means that you'll always have the advantage of a diverse skill set for any situation. I will say it's entirely possible to pick a strong, abusable move and cheese most of the game with it. Certain staff moves like the spin and the chain left-right attacks can insta-kill many enemies, but if you're overusing that, then perhaps you're missing the point of the game. The variety makes the playground experience what it is. Challenge yourself. See if you can get a killing blow with a backwards attack or a flip. See if you can work in some force powers, or try to hold your ground, or allow short breaks in the combat to let the enemy taunt you for some badass characterization. Or just windmill everyone to death if that's fun to you, just a suggestion. Just make sure that you're practiced with whatever you choose, because the final few levels are tough, laden with some hardcore Dark Jedi that will absolutely put up a fight, but damn if it's not fun. And, well, that's that. Jedi Outcast and Academy are well-known, popular Star Wars games to this day for all of those reasons. They absolutely nail the Jedi power fantasy and saber combat so perfectly. And in what other game will Kyle Katarn force choke a guy, lifting him helplessly into the air for you to then get the final strike? Incredible. I'm MagicalMike, and I'm quids in with these games. Cheers.